Outer space can mean a lot of things in science fiction movies. Space can be the final frontier, or it can be an isolating, lonely world away from Earth. Space makes an appearance in many classic sci-fi films, but there's not one specific way that it can be used. Instead, it's more of a blank canvas to be filled as another world away from planet Earth. From space operas to space thrillers, the mystery of the stars means something different in every movie. So in this video, I'm going to look at 3 of my favorite space movies and examine how directors use this infinite void to create deeper meaning, starting with one of the most famous movies in space, Star Wars. Star Wars is one of the most iconic science fiction movies of all time, and part of what made it so exciting when it released in 1977 was the way it used the vastness of space as a landscape for adventure and action. The openness and mystery of space allows it to be this limitless sandbox of excitement, with each planet completely different from the others, and tons of creative aspects from lightsabers to the Force.
What is it? Your father's lightsaber. This is the weapon of a Jedi Knight. Not as clumsy or random as a blaster.
In this way, Star Wars uses space almost as another fantasy world, filled with things that would never exist on Earth, but they can exist in the infinite complexity of space. Star Wars is so special because it takes the ideas of classic westerns and mixes them with the fantasy of science fiction, and the primary driver of that is the way it uses outer space. Han Solo specifically fills the role of the typical western protagonist. He's a lawless drifter who shoots bandits and runs from the law.
Yes, I bet you have.
This role is filled by Clint Eastwood's character in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, as he partners with Tuco the Bandit to make money by turning Tuco over to sheriffs for reward money before rescuing Tuco from jail to do it all over again in another town. This partnership is represented in Star Wars by Han Solo and Chewbacca, but it transcends its western roots through the creativity afforded by the film being set in space. Han Solo doesn't just run from bounty hunters, he navigates through an asteroid field in this incredibly tense scene. He doesn't just have a partner in crime, he has a Wookiee, which is so fun because other characters can't speak the language.
It's not wise to upset a Wookiee.
But sir, nobody worries about upsetting a droid.
It's because a droid don't pull people's arms out of their sockets when they lose. Wookiees are known to do that.
By being set in space, Star Wars takes the core of what makes westerns so special and brings the magic of a near fantasy setting to make everything more extravagant and energetic. The most pure example of this is the iconic Death Star bombing run scene, which was loved by audiences and critics alike since release. It takes the core of a great western, an underdog fighting an overwhelming force because of what they believe in, and elevates it with stakes that affect the entire galaxy rather than just a small town, as well as the high energy that comes naturally when you have characters flying spaceships around. Just as the arrival of the train was a big change for the Wild West, taking the western genre into space with Star Wars took these great genre themes that had fallen by the wayside in 1977 and modernized them for a new audience. Although it may seem intuitive that going to space is fantastical and larger than life, this isn't always the case, as I'll explain with Interstellar and its more grounded approach to outer space. Where Star Wars uses space as almost a fantasy battleground, space in Interstellar is much more cold and desolate, making it the perfect canvas to show the limitless expanse of love and how it motivates every action that Coop does in the film. Space in Star Wars brings so much meaning because of what it is, but in Interstellar it brings so much meaning because of what it isn't. The vast expanse of space is always an obstacle, both the physical distance that Coop has to travel through and the perils that exist on the different planets they explore. These obstacles are what make the love in this film stand out. The inciting incident in this film is that Coop, played by Matthew McConaughey, has to travel far into space to find a planet capable of sustaining human life because Earth is slowly dying out. Even as he travels multiple light years away from Earth, missing out on time with his family and watching his children grow up without him, Coop's love for humanity and the knowledge that this mission will secure a future for his daughter keeps him committed to his goal of finding a replacement planet. Even though the perils of space make this mission difficult and there's an unfathomable distance between Coop and his children, his love for them is still present. No matter the obstacle, love prevails, and you can see that really clearly at the end of the film. The film diverges a bit from scientific reality here and embraces science fiction in order to make its themes around love more pronounced. It sees Coop get pulled into a black hole where he can then see his daughter's bedroom in the past, before he ever left on his space mission. From this position in the black hole, he can communicate into the past with his daughter by drawing lines in the sand. By doing this, he's able to relay information to his daughter about where the ideal planet is for humanity to start over after Earth. In weathering this obstacle in space, he's able to complete his mission and finish his love-fueled quest. Through the empty distance and harsh obstacles of space, the film is able to characterize Coop as someone who loves his children more than anything else, and it shows the extremes that he will go to in order to secure a future for humanity. While Star Wars Wars was space fantasy and Interstellar tried to capture a more realistic view of space, the film Arrival presents a third view of space, one inspired by classic sci-fi films, using space as this unknown vessel carrying extraterrestrial life which will eventually visit Earth. The 2016 film Arrival uses space the way many classic sci-fi films of the 50s did. It represents a vast unknown, both in terms of knowledge and fear. This unknown is used incredibly well in Arrival, both the potential knowledge and the fear of the unknown, as linguist Louise Banks is hired by the military to talk to these two aliens, eventually named Abbott and Costello, who land in a Montana field. Much of the film surrounds attempts to communicate with the alien, as well as the conflict between Louise and the military, as they view the aliens as a threat, while she views them as insightful resources. This conflict is what makes space such a pivotal part of the film. There are films where people end up in completely foreign countries where they know absolutely nothing, but even in that situation, everyone involved is a human, so it's only unknown to a degree. In the case of Arrival, both Louise and the military know absolutely nothing about these aliens, except that they came from outer space and suddenly landed on Earth. The use of space in this way is so genius because it's the only truly unknown thing beyond pure fantasy. The best example of this conflict over the unknown is the scene in which Abbott and Costello say that they are on Earth to, quote, give weapon. And while the military is scared of this statement, Louise argues that it's a mistranslation because it's an unknown language from an unknown creature from an unknown place. This conflict eventually gets worked out as Louise realizes that Abbott and Costello are on Earth to provide some sort of knowledge. What this knowledge ends up being is an important part of the ending of the movie, so I won't spoil it, but I will say that it speaks to the fear of the unknown established earlier in the film. The key to receiving this information is braving the unknown and attempting to understand it, even if it's scary, and the key to this unknown is the infinite distance of space. I love the way Arrival chooses to use space as a middle ground between pure science fantasy like Star Wars and almost science realism like Interstellar. It's a unique choice that leverages the creativity of some fantasy, but the immersion of some realism. Space is one of the greatest narrative locations for films because of how it acts as a canvas for the director to display themes without the restrictions of realism imposed by Earth. Films like Star Wars can use space as a fantasy and tell you about all of these new technologies and planets and creatures to dazzle the audience, or a film can be like Arrival and intentionally utilize the unknown quality of space to present a mystery with fear behind it. Even though space in our real world is vast and empty, directors can fill space with anything they want, almost without limit, and that's why I find outer space to be such a compelling setting for a film. There are tons of great films that use outer space in other ways, so let me know your favorite down in the comments. Thanks for watching, press the like button if you enjoyed the video, and be sure to subscribe to get notified of more videos in the coming weeks.